right now.
We're just going to cheat this way. You look super comfortable. I'm so glad I can make you comfortable.
Yeah. Is this your first podcast or?
Yeah. I don't know. I used to work in radio.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Oh,
So-
yeah, you've done it all.
What?
So, yeah, you're like a pro at this.
I guess. It'll
All
be
right.
fine.
And Ruth is also launching her own podcast, and
Oh.
she's a journalist for Fast Company, so I have no pity for you.
Very cool. That's awesome. All right, cool. So we'll do mic checks. We'll say, just tell me what you had for breakfast. We'll make sure your levels are right. Red.
I had a breakfast sandwich
Ooh.
with avocado. It was delicious.
Sounds really good.
I know.
actually
I'm really living my
very
life,
healthy.
and I should be.
And yellow.
I actually had a smoothie. It was
So you are
Not
the
as
beacon of
exciting.
health.
it was a chocolate smoothie.
Okay.
All right. We'll do 10
Living.
seconds. We'll do 10 seconds of silence and we'll get started.
Okay, cool. That is so official. So official at Gotham Podcast Studios.
We've started. All right.
Hi, I'm Jessica Minhas, and welcome to I'll Go First. I am joined by my very, very, very dear friend and actual kind of neighbor, Ruth Reader. She is a journalist for Fast Company on health and technology. She has also been published by the New York Times.
Oh, please.
It's pretty amazing on the Modern Love section
Column.
column.
Keep it official.
Sorry, New York Times author on the
wow.
on the
What are we?
Modern Love column. I can talk. Anyway, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I'm
Thanks
so
for inviting
excited.
me.
You have such an inspiring and powerful story.
So, hey guys, sorry. So sorry. I just realized you guys are multi-track and I just got that started. So can we do that over again?
No,
Super
that is
sorry.
actually
That's
really
a great
helpful.
idea. We would love to do that over again.
All right, cool. We're warmed up.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Multi-track is going. We'll do 10 seconds of silence and we'll get started again.
Hi, I'm Jessica Minhas, and welcome to I'll Go First. I am joined by my very, very dear friend and sort of neighbor, Ruth Reader. She is a journalist for Fast Company. She has been published in the New York Times, and she has an amazing, powerful story. She's deeply passionate about health advocacy and health equity and technology and how to scale health. So thank you so much for coming.
What an
All this
intro.
way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, all this way from Tribeca.
From Tribeca. That is where Fast Company is located. I did not know that. I
Yeah.
felt like they'd be in Wall Street for some reason.
I mean, it's close.
Well, so for I'll Go First, we're all about courage and sharing each other's stories and how-tos from our journeys. And what really inspired me about your just process, we've had a lot of conversations around taking care of parents and what a challenge that is. I know in my case, I haven't shared this on the podcast yet, and you know this, but in my case, I took care of my grandfather, sort of. I tried.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of trying involved.
there is
in this.
And it was really hard. He was also an alcoholic, which complicated everything. And it was kind of like I was in a domestic abuse situation because it was just my grandfather and I, so I was kind of like his wife in this weird way.
Yeah.
It's-
Well, right, because you become sort of enmeshed.
Enmeshed, triangulated, parentified, I think.
Definitely, but I'm
Something.
pretty sure that happened.
Adultified.
Yeah, before that moment for you, probably.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
So, yeah.
What can you say? Like, you're really passionate about healthcare and health policy, and I know a little bit about your personal story, so I'm coming in to the podcast knowing a lot of information. But do you mind sharing just a little bit about what kind of drives your passion for that, and how in the world did we get here?
Okay, so, what should I talk about? Should I talk about my passion around health or my story?
Oh, which comes first?
Which comes first?
I think that's up to you.
Okay.
For me personally, it's my story that's
Yeah.
kind of like
What led you?
drove my passion for injustice. But maybe that's because I'm a little aggressive.
No, I think that's probably true for me too. I mean, so my story is long, so we're not going to tell all of it. But I will say my mom also was an alcoholic, so was my father. But my mother got cancer when I was, well, she had it twice, but the second time, and I was 25 years old. And I had to make a really crazy decision, which was, do I go home and take care of her? And it was hard because we had a really fraught relationship. I mean, she was not only an alcoholic, but she also suffered from bipolar disorder, and it was a complicated one. She didn't get her meds right. I mean, to no fault of her own, her doctor, and she just couldn't find the right combination. It probably wasn't helped by the fact that she was drinking. But she, so she was a very complicated person to interact with. And we didn't have a good relationship at all. So, and I was 25, I had left home. I had sort of gotten away from from all of the chaos of alcoholic parents.
Because both your parents growing up
were alcoholics, yeah. And
Wow.
they were weird. They sort of operated independently of each other. She sort of was raging in one corner, and my father would be asleep on the couch in another room. It was just a very weird sort of childhood. But
and so you didn't really have anyone that protected you from the other.
When I was really young, my dad did, but when I turned 12, he started drinking.
Just a switch.
Kind of, yeah. I think he had always drank. He always, every so often he'd have a beer, but he went full blown deep alcoholism when I turned 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. I mean, just watching your face right now, it just seems like it almost was like a night and day just switch.
It kind of was, and it was a betrayal for me with my dad because we were very close. And so when he started drinking all the time, it felt like a real betrayal. He was no longer able to protect me. I did a lot of protecting myself throughout my years, but he was always sort of a little bit of a buffer, and then he could no longer be a buffer after that point.
So you kind of lost him at that age.
Yeah, and it was very, it was like we broke up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
And then then you didn't have your dad in the same way. And also he was no longer protecting you.
Right. And I mean, there's a lot more to it. I mean, later he moved out and so he was physically not there. He remarried when I was in college. But yeah.
What was the house kind of like once he kind of tapped out?
What was the house like? I mean, it was just my mother. I mean, so it was more, in some ways it was more of the same because he was sleeping all the time. He was very what's the word? He was very absent. Even when he was physically there, he was passed out. So it's not like he was doing anything. He neither added to the chaos nor sort of took away from it. He was sort of in his own world, drunk, asleep, just literally conked out. And my mom had a lot of ups and downs emotionally, just always on the roller coaster, a lot of rage, a lot of deep sadness, and a lot of hospital visits because she was getting drunk so frequently and she was falling, and she already had she sustained a head injury from falling, which is really not uncommon at all. It's, in fact, a lot of head injuries are what the ER deals with from alcohol, or not from alcoholics, but from addicts and abusers. So she had a head injury. And so, we were it was a lot of me taking care of her. When she would get out of the hospital, I'd come home from school at lunch and
And how
feed
old are
her.
you at this point?
Probably, I forget when my dad left. I think probably I was 16 or 17.
And you have a younger brother.
And I have a younger brother.
And so where is he at this point? You're also taking care of him?
To a certain extent. I mean, I had help. I had like a network of friends. He had a great network of friends, a lot of friends' families that would like take him to, because he played sports in both middle and high school. And so because other parents were going to the games, they would make sure that he got there and like get him home, and sometimes let him sleep over at their house and that sort of thing. So when he was home though, I would like help him with his homework and make sure he ate and that sort of thing.
And your mom, she is working? She's not working, like, in this process?
She stopped working. She stopped working when I was 12, I want to say. She basically, it's really funny. So she was a terrible alcoholic, as we know. I mean, she was drinking in the morning before she went into work. She worked as a financial analyst, and she was drunk when she would get home. So I can't even imagine. Like, as an adult now, I have no idea what her days were like, but they were wild. I can only imagine. And how it went down was that she lost the one job because of her alcoholism. She was working at a small investment bank. And then she got this big job on the what is it called? Investor relations team at Viacom. That was very big.
Wow.
Yeah. And she got fired, maybe for performance, who knows? But I mean, she got swept up in the merger between CBS and Viacom the first go. I think that was in 97 or 98. And when that happened, she got fired with a bunch of other people. Like, her boss got fired. You know what I mean? So after that, because she had a contract with them.
Yeah.
She was living off of that for the next ever.
Wow. Okay, so she didn't go back after that point.
She thought about it.
Yeah.
I think she wanted to, but she was like really messed up.
Did she have a sense that like her alcoholism was out of control, or that like she was obviously going to doctors?
She was.
Yeah.
She was. I mean, she had to take, during her last job, she had to take 6 months off, and she was in a psych ward. She was like in a closed psych ward.
At that point, you're at college already?
No, I was 11.
Oh my goodness.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I was like in the 6th grade or something.
Wow.
Anyway, this is getting too deep.
Sorry. I didn't know that. Wow, 11.
Yeah.
I wish we were around each other to hang out like these adultified 11-year-olds. My grandmother passed when I was 9, so that's when I became the lady of the house. Spam dinners and canned green pea
Let
beans.
me just say, shout out to Lean Cuisine. Honest to God. That and like Weight Watchers meals, girl, let me tell you, because I didn't know how to cook, but I could walk to the grocery store. You know what I mean? I could take like a few dollars and buy a frozen dinner.
I'm just trying to imagine petite little Ruth going to get. Mine was the Idaho potatoes that you added water to.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember?
Oh yeah. We also had the other thing we would have in my house that I would make that was so easy were those like instant rices. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh man, I wish I had those, because otherwise it was like spam. Mainly old Lunchables.
We didn't have. Did we have meat? We might have had some deli meat.
It's weird because in my house, my grandfather, I found out recently, worked for the State Department during his career. So it was interesting being with him as a kid and not having the means to go get like real food, even though our house was like full of all these items from his travels and stuff. And also, by the way, I'm going to cut this part out, but anything you say that you regret, we can edit.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're already like, I have something in mind.
Maybe. We'll see. I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay. So you are, let's just skip to the part where you're in college.
Yeah.
And you're giving up your entire life.
So I'm not even in college. So I'm an adult woman. So I've had this fraught relationship with my mother where I'm like taking care of her, right? And then I leave. There are some other complicated things that happened along the way. But let's just say that while I'm in college, she is frequently calling me and asking me for money and, other things. She's like telling me that her heat is going to be shut off, that she can't pay the electric bill. We had and we always fought. We just like could not stop fighting. I could not stop fighting with this woman. And she could not really get better.
Yeah, that must have been really hard.
Right. I mean, it's so hard and it's so complicated. And I didn't, as a young person, appreciate her mental illness at all.
Well, did you really? I mean, you're so young.
I knew mostly because I was aware of the diagnosis. I don't remember who told me. Probably my dad. He was always like very cavalier with that sort of information, but just very blunt about like everything. I was thinking about this morning because I don't remember why, but I remember like before my brother was born, my mom had a miscarriage, and my dad was like, "Ruthie, your mother's sad because she had a miscarriage." I'm like 4 years old.
Oh my goodness, you remember that?
I'm like, yeah. Is that stupid? Anyway.
No, it's not, but the ways that we scar children. I'm just like taking notes. So
I don't think I was scarred by it. It's just like where I remember I was like, oh, a miscarriage. I should find out what that is.
I should find out what that is in my late 20s, looking back on my life. Oh, that's right. That's what you meant.
But anyway, so complicated relationship. And so we didn't talk for periods while I was in college just because it was too much. And I've lost my train of thought. But anyway, so basically it got to be, our relationship was so fraught that I cut off communication with her for periods of time because I couldn't. And we had been talking, I remember. So we hadn't been talking for a while. I had like sort of come to visit her during her first round of cancer, and then a couple years later she got hit with the second one. And at the same time, I'd gotten out of a relationship that was very hard for me. And we had kind of recently reconnected because I had reached out to her in like a moment of pain. And she had answered the phone and like said all the right things, which was like highly unusual. It was like, honestly, this is why people believe in God. I am an atheist, just full disclosure, but like I can understand because you're just like, how? Like
this was like a beacon of hope.
It
suddenly.
was like, how?
Like, oh my gosh, are you going to be my mom now?
Are you going to be my mom now? Wild.
That's so exciting.
But she said all the right things, and I was like, this is what I need to hear.
Yeah, of course.
Just
oh
tell
gosh,
me that he's terrible and that I should be laughing and not crying my eyes out. And she did, and it was fine, and I did laugh because she can be quite charming. But so then I had found out about the cancer. She told me. Or probably actually my dad told me, even though they divorced, he somehow knew this. It doesn't matter. Families, you know? And so I had found out we were celebrating her birthday. It was like a few months later. And I was in her house and we were talking. And then all of a sudden, it was just very apparent that something was very wrong. Like her words started to slur
in the moment,
just like out of nowhere, and like her brain just like completely twitched or something.
Wow.
And she had recently told me that, oh my God, I'm like not drinking right now. Like, you know, I'm amazing. I don't even want to drink. And I was like, that's so suspect and scary. And then when she like and I was like, I kind of wonder whether her body is having a reaction because of the cancer, and that it's just like, no, like no
We're
poison,
done.
thank you,
We're
no
done.
toxins. So when she had that sort of like brain slowdown, I got really freaked out, and I was like, oh my God, she might die. Like maybe she's dying. And that obviously stirred up all sorts of emotions for me.
Complex.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, like, parents can be so sucky. We're all human. We all make massive mistakes. We're all subject to illness and mental illness and all these things. And, like, no one's perfect. But, like, but I don't know, but, like, but that's my mother. Do you know what I mean?
I know. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's always going to be, I mean, I know even with my parents now, I'm just like, oh, it's going to be amazing one day when you come around. And meanwhile, I'm 36 and I'm like, don't worry, I'm still holding my breath.
Oh my God, indefinitely. Yeah. I always, like, up until my early 20s, I was like, my parents are they have the potential to get better. They could get better.
Right.
But it was just no. That is not true.
Yeah, same. Especially with my grandfather, because he was drinking so much this as well, and very verbally abusive, physically abusive, and even like almost every morning, I'd be like, "Today is the day. I'm gonna come home, and know he's gonna be drunk, but maybe he won't be, and maybe I will be able to tell him about what happened at school and just be normal."
Yes, completely. Oh my God. And I had this ray of hope when my mother, like, answered the phone that one time and was like,
of course.
But then I tried to, like, turn it into a real relationship. And I was like, you should come and visit me. I know. It seems like
been there.
It seems so minor, but I was like, yeah, just, like, come down here. I, like, booked her bus tickets and everything, or train tickets. I don't even remember what I paid for, but I paid for something for her to come down. And she bailed. Because she had this, she freaked. She was like, I have to get my life together this weekend, so actually I can't come down.
We're going to get the whole 40 plus years of life done in 48 hours.
Mm-hmm, yep, this weekend.
I wish it was that easy.
48 hours. So much can happen.
That'd be amazing. So she books it. I mean, you book it. She doesn't come down.
No. And there were multiple moments like these where it was just like, I just want us to have a normal relationship. And it was not possible. It was not possible for us. I had to accept the relationship as it was.
How do you accept that? I mean, that is so hard. What does accepting that look like? Or how does it look like for you? For me, I'm still working on it.
It's a lot of swallowing of expectation and getting used to, like, not normal. Like, I think the biggest challenge I've had as an adult human being, and I don't know what normal even is, so, like, whatever, but, like, whatever ideas I have ingrained in my brain from society or television or whatever I read, like, whatever my idea based on, like, social inputs of being normal are, I have had to completely dispense with that and just, like, accept that I'm never going to have whatever that is. It's not related to me. I have to come up with an entirely new paradigm that is based on my existing realities, and that is it.
I was talking with my therapist.
Sure.
Let me rephrase that. I was in therapy 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about my self-talk, how I talk to myself. And I think I've been trying to piece together, like, education was my ticket out of my situation. So that meant that I was the overachiever, like straight A's. And anytime I came home, it was like, never good enough for acknowledgement. And, typically my grandfather would say something like, oh, you think you're a big shot now. And it's so creepy. Even when I say that to myself, I get, like, chills because I can, like, feel it on my back. So success has always been, like, kind of scary because, like, accomplishing something then means, like, this backlash where almost, like, success feels bad. But I still want it because I want to prove myself. And also that was, like, the way that I got out of my situation. But I was talking with my therapist about, like, how to reparent myself.
Ooh.
Like,
tell me about that.
How do I become the parent that I don't have? Like, especially when it comes to encouragement. Like, oh my gosh, Ruth, you got published in the New York Times. That's amazing. But actually, like, feeling amazing about it rather than being like, oh yeah, but, or like, yeah, but I'm not going to let myself celebrate that much. And so, like, I guess my self-talk, even with, like, work stuff, has been like, you got to get this done. And she's like, how about other words? Like, what other words could you use? And I'm like, I don't even know what words are an option. She's like, maybe you could say, you did a great job. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. Like, I don't even have like a map, like a dictionary of suggestions of what good parents say to their children whom they love.
Yes, I feel you on all of this. It actually reminds me of something that I did this year that was really weird. So get ready for like, I don't know, really like hippy dippy
Ruth is
therapy.
dancing right now, if you could see her.
I did a group hypnotism
Oh, tell me.
session.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend. Okay, everybody has. I'm like feeling judged before I say anything, but whatever.
Is that whose voice is that?
I don't know. But so what this woman did was it was like very classic hypnotherapy, from what I understand. I don't know a ton about hypnotherapy, but essentially, she like counts you backwards into this like hypnotic state, and then basically what she does is she has you visualize your child self.
Okay.
And then you're kind of in this weirdo dream state. And so then you kind of like let your brain figure out like what happens next. So like does your inner child like come towards you? Does it run away? Does it do something else? I don't know. And in my case, my inner child is kind of doing great.
Amazing.
She's thriving, apparently. So
that's great.
That was cool for me. I was like, thank God she's fine.
Do you like your inner child?
Oh, yeah, she's rad. I cried during the session.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know. It was wild.
amazing.
Because I do like my inner child. She was cool and precocious and, like, had a bowl cut.
Did she really have I feel like maybe you should try that again.
Oh, no. No, I had it.
We do live in Bushwick, so.
No. I rocked that for
That's
far
amazing
too many
that you
years.
liked your inner child. I did some inner child work, and I was like, no, thank you. You annoy me. And so in therapy, we're working through that right now, too.
Yeah.
It's like actually having compassion for myself.
Well, I think, so back to your parenting thing, I think that can be a really helpful tool because, so I've been like, my husband and I joke that I'll like get in touch with my inner child to like see what's going on with her. You know what I mean?
That's great.
But it sort of gives you an opportunity from a visual perspective, like whether or not you buy into whatever, I don't know. But like what it does is it lets you sort of like visualize your younger self, and then you get to physically take care of that younger version of you and like hang out with younger you and like maybe read you a story. I don't know. Or just touch base for 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
What about that experience made you cry?
Oh my God. I think I cried in part because I was relieved that I was fine.
Wow.
So there was that. And then the other part was, this is way sadder. The other reason I cried was because I realized that adult me was doing the same stuff to younger me that my mom did to younger me. Heavy.
What kind of stuff?
Mostly just neglecting. Just like being too busy with everything else to like check in with myself, to like make sure I'm being taken care of, to like make sure I'm happy, all that stuff. Just kind of ignoring her.
Wow.
Just ignoring that sort of like base self. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was doing it in the same ways.
Wow, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, just to recognize the sort of duality with it.
So
Isn't it weird how like as adults, I think any of us have to reparent ourselves, but in my case, I always want to be speaking from my perspective. Yeah, I definitely reparented myself as a shitty parent that I got parented
Yeah,
by.
exactly. We're bad parents to ourselves.
Well, we didn't really have good examples.
We really didn't, but
I was talking to you.
uh-huh.
We were at my dear friend Colin O'Brady's celebration. He had just like crossed Antarctica, as you do, by himself in 54 days. Colin, if you're listening, I don't even remember how many world records you've broken. I think it's 7. And he's so lovely and so sweet and so encouraging.
All of these things.
Genuine.
Very genuine, very lovely.
So genuine. When you talk to him, he is just like exuding love and encouragement and like this, you got this vibe.
Yeah.
It's so sweet and so lovely. And I walked out of there feeling kind of bad about myself. And we walked into a wine bar.
Yeah.
And you looked at me, and we had not even said a word from leaving outside of me expressing my severe social anxiety.
Right.
And you said, wow, he must have had parents that really loved him.
Yeah. Which I stand by.
I stand by it too. And I
was like, that person, their parents really love them, and you can tell it shows. But I feel that way about a lot of people who have, like, my husband, Gio, his parents, like, obviously loved him. He just, like, walks like, I don't know what. He's just like this little golden child. He just, you know, does and has no fears and, like.
I think it's interesting how, in my situation, like, not having parents made me feel like, well, I have nothing to lose. So I'm just going to go for it because at this point, what else can I do? But at the same time, when I see, you know, people like Colin who came from such a loving home who are also able to just go do stuff, but it's a different vibe. Like, he's so open, you know, like it feels like if you have a home base to come back to, there's like a different sense of freedom.
He literally said that, I think, during his talk. But yeah, I think it's a complicated thing. Because on the one hand, yeah, I totally felt that way too when I was younger. I was like, whatever, my parents are trash, but like, I can do whatever I want. I'm free, right? Teenage me. But at the same time, and like, I have no responsibilities. I have no obligations to these people, though I did, obviously, which we're going to get back to. But I felt like I didn't. But it's a lie. You, like, everyone is in some way obligated to their family, and even if they're not, you probably feel some guilt about it at some point.
It's true. It's true.
Or some feelings. You're going to feel a type of way about your family.
Yeah. Even with my grandfather, you know, taking care of him, again, that was such a mess that I'm unpacking right now in therapy. And maybe I can have my therapist here. That would be interesting. I think Chelsea Handler did that. Her recent book is basically all of her therapy sessions with Dr. Dan Siegel, whom I love. You should check out his information. His stuff is so fascinating. You would really like it a lot, Ruth. You would like it. And I actually, I now remember that when I think back about that time, like I gave up my college scholarship to stay in my hometown and take care of him because no one else was going to be there to do it. And despite how ugly he had gotten, you know, there was definitely the obligatory part of me that was like, absolutely, by no means am I leaving him by himself. Like, no matter what, I'm going to stay here and take care of him. Obviously, like, even if he was alive now, he'd be 94, I think. And if he hadn't passed, I'd 100% still be in my hometown right by his side.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's true. Like, in my case with my mom, like, when I saw her starting to deteriorate, I was like, I can't let this woman die in this house alone. I know that she's a lot. And I know that living together is a fraught experience for us because, as I said, we fight a lot. And it's like nasty, also nonsensical fighting. But I couldn't. And then there was also that feeling like, will I regret not spending this time with her before she dies? Because I don't know. You just don't know. You just don't know what you don't know. And like, I don't know that I was really looking for any kind of closure from it. I just felt like I should be there.
Yeah. And so you moved back.
I moved in with her, which was, whew.
And that's when you were 25, bringing us back.
That's when I was 25.
Where we started. You were 25 when you moved in with her.
Yeah.
And at that point, what stage was she at?
I actually don't know.
In terms of cancer, she had cancer again.
She had cancer. Yeah. We were not actively talking about stages. Her doctor was very much trying to keep her positive, And so we talked about it in terms of treatment and how we're treating it and like we're going to get this. I mean, to the point where the day, like I think it was the day that I brought her in because she had gone septic.
Oh, wow.
Her oncologist was like, we're going to fix her up. We're going to get her out of there. We're going to get her treated. She's going to beat this. You know, he was really trying to get her back. And I understand that. I mean, there is a lot to be said for like the psychology of sort of like happiness when it comes to cancer and health. It wasn't always a realistic approach, but whatever. Yeah. So
how are you feeling when he was saying this? I mean, at this point you've had like you've been sort of definitely neglected as a kid, and your dad pieced out for his own stuff. He had his own stuff, and then your mom was going through stuff, so you were kind of by yourself most of childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you left, you went to university, and now suddenly you're back taking care of your mom who is dying.
Yeah. And also mentally ill. And also, well, at this point, she's not drinking, but she's definitely still very mentally ill.
At 25.
At 25. For me, when I was 25.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I move in. There's all sorts of like rules off the bat. It was very fraught. And so going in, I knew it was going to be bad going in. Like I knew that if I made this decision, it was not a decision I made lightly, first of all. I wasn't like, yeah, I've got to move home. I was like, I didn't really initially think I was going to move home, to be honest. I weighed it carefully because I had a career, or what I thought was the beginning of a career, and I had a life. I had friends. I had a lot going on. I didn't want to sacrifice everything that I had built just to go back home to take care of my mother. So I sort of did it very carefully. I was lucky in that my job at the time had an office in New York, and I'm very bossy sometimes. I basically told them that I was going to go work out of the New York office. And I did it in such a way by emailing multiple bosses at once that they couldn't say no. Yeah. Because I was telling them that I was moving to the New York office to take care of my mother who was dying of cancer. But because I included like the top people who I knew were like kind of nice, I was like, there's no way they're going to say no to this. And then the underlings can't say no once the top boss approves
Strategy.
It. Always go to the top. So I knew I was not going to stop going to work, and that worked for me. I don't think it works for everybody, but that worked for me because I needed to be able to get out of the house. I needed to not be there all the time because she's stressful, and maybe I am also stressful when I'm with her. But so I did that. I moved home, and I knew I was going to be like on my best behavior. I was like going to be my most self-aware self. That was the goal. And I was not going to yell at her, and I was going to try my damnedest to not give into old, very ingrained behaviors. And so I like really had to like center. And I also did that by like making sure I set up an appointment with my old therapist in my old town, and I was like, I'm going to need to be seeing you now.
Wow, so you really strategized.
I really did. I was like, I know this is going to be hard. I do want to be here, but I need to be able to take care of myself in this moment because
look at you parenting yourself.
Look at me. And then I had friends who were there, and I made sure that I was like sometimes going out, and I wasn't going to be like a slave to my mother, even though I was also taking care of her. So I did all those things, and it was really hard. As soon as I got there were rules. I was not allowed to cook.
Okay.
So I could not cook in the house.
Who's feeding you then? You both. How are you both eating?
I ate out a lot.
What did she eat? You bought food for her.
She ate oranges and apples and the occasional smoothie. I think that's it. She really wasn't eating. I mean, she's so nauseous from the
Right, that makes sense.
From the
yeah,
meds.
That's really hard.
And so, so she's so nauseous, she doesn't want me cooking because the smell makes her sick.
Right, that makes
sense. So there's reasons for it, but she was like so aggro about it.
Yeah.
I was like, fine. I'm not like, who am I to argue with you? So I didn't argue with her. But then there were like other things. So I brought my dog with me, and I remember I went, honestly, I think it was like my first or second week at work, and she would call me. I don't know even, did I give her my office number? I don't know, but that was a mistake, because she would call me on my office line, and she would just call and scream at me and tell me to go home. She'd be like, I don't want you here. I never asked you to be here. You need to take your dog with you. He's barking at me. Like, you have to go. This is over. All this stuff. And she would just call. And then I would hang up on her. And then she would call. And she would call. And she would call. And my phone is ringing off the hook. And then I just have to take it off the cradle.
I can see your face right now. I wish that listeners could see your face, because I can feel the tension. Wow. Like, I think that is just so hard to take care of somebody who is a really difficult person and who has really not been there.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too. I'm in my mid-30s now, and I have friends who are starting that process of taking care of their parents, or starting that process of unfortunately having parents with terminal illnesses. Mm-hmm. And in a weird way, I'm like, oh, I've already been there and I've done that. Like, it's like kind of like old news.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
I mean,
it's always new for somebody.
It's true. Well, I mean, but in my own experience, in some ways, I'm like, well, I'm glad I got that out of the way as a younger person, because I can't imagine doing it now with a career, with a family, having kids of your own. I think that would be really overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine it is. It all depends. What was I going to say to you? But so she does this thing. Then I go home that day. And I'm obviously very angry at her. But I'm like, I'm not going to get angry at her. I'm going to walk in there. We're going to have a conversation.
All these plans that you made.
I really did. I planned
moving home.
But honestly, I really think that the planning is key for this stuff. You cannot go in blind, or you will die. You will die on an emotional stake of your own making. Don't do it. You really need to plan. So I went in and I was like, and she's like in a great mood. And she's like watching TV. She's like, it's fine. I fixed the problem. Just like, buy me some dog treats, basically, that I can give your dog. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I can do that. I was like, but you can't call me at work anymore. And you can't yell at me at work.
How did that go over?
She didn't say anything. And then she was like, fine. And she didn't.
Wow. Okay.
I basically started to just quietly, calmly establish some boundaries with her. I was like, you can't, there was another time where I was like, you can't talk to me that way. Just like, I'm not going to, or like she would start to try and push me into argument. She'd want me to argue with her and get me to this insane level that honestly I hope no one ever sees me at again, because it's like, ugh. But she, she eggs on. And so I'd be like, I'm too old to do this with you. I'm not doing this with you. And then I would set a boundary. I'd be like, we can only if you need something from me, ask me for it. We will do it. Ask me for it calmly. Do not scream at me. Don't call at me to scream at me. Just ask.
So what I'm hearing you say is that would you say for people who are listening right now who are in that process of taking care of a loved one who is not so easy to take care of, some things that I heard you mention were creating boundaries. You really set up a plan for yourself too when you moved back.
Yeah, I cannot recommend enough. Just before you, even if you're already living with that person, just whether you're at work or you're out somewhere else, maybe go to a coffee shop, maybe go to the library if you can't afford a coffee, and just sit down, take 5 minutes and just think for a minute and say how can I enter a situation with this person when things get bad in a way that both of us won't end up screaming at each other. because really it seems like you're doing it for them, but really you are doing it for yourself because you need to protect your sanity.
So it was like you said some key things that when you moved home, you had an already established relationship with a mental health practitioner.
Yes, I did.
It doesn't have to be a practitioner, but somebody who you can
a social worker,
go to.
Somebody.
Yeah. And I think, I'm so glad you just said that, but also someone who can maybe help navigate the healthcare system.
Oh, yeah.
If that's possible.
I wish I had that, so I don't know. Navigating the healthcare system is so impossible.
It's impossible, but there are patient advocates out there now. We actually just had someone on the show earlier who is a patient advocate and was talking about like there are these concierge services now, but regardless, like building a relationship with your loved one's care team and making sure that you're on the same page with them. You said you had gotten like really connected with friends while you were home.
Oh yeah, I
built,
did.
Like a community to spend time with, a dog. I mean,
well, my dog came with me. So
dogs
right,
can
exactly.
be so helpful.
Dogs, yeah, having a dog was great. I will say this also. So another complicated factor or thing in taking care of yourself is sort of like how much time you spend with your loved one versus like taking care of yourself and making sure you get space. It is hard to figure out that balance, and sometimes you're going to feel like you're messing it up, and sometimes you're going to feel like maybe you're not giving enough attention to your loved one and maybe you're focusing too much on yourself, but it will go back and forth. Sometimes you'll feel like you're focusing too much on them and not giving enough attention to yourself, and you kind of have to just like be as easy with that as you can. Like go easy on yourself. Try not to like get upset, because there were definitely times when I feel like I booked time with my friends that I shouldn't have. Like sometimes I just like, not because I could have known, just like things would come up and I should have just canceled my plans with my friends, for example. Or vice versa. You know what I mean? But maybe my friends weren't available when I was available. So it becomes difficult, but you sort of have to just like let yourself go with it and like do your best.
Yeah, for sure. I am thinking back about my time with my grandfather and have been really struggling recently because I feel really guilty for not being at home that much, and I talked to a family member who I think everybody's hands were kind of tied in my situation. Nobody really knew how to intervene. I was 17 and he was almost 80, and he was really sick. He was an alcoholic. He also had been half paralyzed. He had broken his hip. He needed 24/7 care, but he refused it, and he would kick all of the nursing aides out. Like I remember 1 month, 13 aides rotated from the hospital, and just nobody wanted to be around him. One aide stole our car, and like when I came home, the car was missing. I was like, "Where's the car?" He's like, "I don't know. It'll come back," and just ignored me. And then a few days later, it showed up. And when I asked him, when I mentioned that the car had come home, he was like, "Yeah, I knew it would." So it was a disaster. But I look back now with some hindsight, and I can see like that how sick he was. He was just kind of starving himself. He didn't eat, and he was just like kind of a bag of bones. And I have been really struggling, not beating myself up over feeling like it's my fault that like he kind of in his own way starved himself to death, and wanting to not feel complicit in it. But I was so young and I just couldn't be at home. He was so mean. So that's an area that I'm kind of reconciling myself through. How much was my stuff? How much was his stuff? And then trying to have sobriety around it, being like, I was a teenager. I need to keep that in mind. I was by myself as trying to survive high school on top of that. So yeah, that's a really good point, is to try and build a capacity and space for yourself with a lot of grace and compassion.
Yeah,
around that situation.
Absolutely. And I should also say, like, I think in my situation, I got a little lucky because my mom did respond. Not all the time, obviously. And sometimes I did have to walk away. But that's the thing. It's like you have to be able to walk away from a situation, step out of the house, make space for yourself. Like, it's not always going to resolve perfectly. You should try not to get into, like, altercations. But yeah, just like take a breath.
There There's a lot there. There's so much there. I wish we had more time. Maybe we'll bring you back for another time. I would love to bring you back for another time. Really quick, I know you're super passionate about mental health and health access, and I saw a tweet that you made recently about San Francisco and homelessness, and you said something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, but we should care just as much about mental health access as we do homelessness. And I always say in my field in human rights, if mental health is not made as equal of a priority as education access, as vocational training, then we're not going to get the benefit that we want out of this programming. So that was more of a statement than a question, but just thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that we forget that, like, homelessness, like the act of being homeless can really mess with your mental state.
Right.
And the same thing with poverty. Like, they go, not everybody who's poor has a mental illness. It's not about that. But, like, the hardship that you endure because of poverty, because of homelessness, because of these strifes, impact your mental state and your mental health. And we need to be paying more attention to vulnerable populations.
Completely agree. 100%. Next time we can talk about the policy stuff and not have to talk our personal stories and vulnerability, because that stuff is hard too.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you? What are you up to next?
Who knows what I'm up to next? Secret for now. But probably the best is to find me on Twitter. You can also, I'm pretty easy to find.
You are actually.
I'm really easy. Not a lot of people have my name.
You are verified. You're verified on Twitter.
That's right.
It's pretty impressive. Well, I know where you can find her. I'll put the links in the description, but www.ruthreader.com on Twitter, Ruth Reader, and check out her New York Times article.
Ugh.
So proud.
Thanks.
So proud. Well, thanks for coming. See you guys next time.
Bye.